Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap, and I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. I created this show because I have for years had a passion to share resources that help women navigate career and life challenges with more ease and grace, and to know that they're not alone. So many women I meet think they're the only ones going through whatever it is they're going through, and the truth of it is they are not alone. So each week, my guest and I co-create a show to encourage women to be more confident, resilient, and brave, and to excel in their careers and their lives. So if you're inspired by something that you hear today and you want more of it, subscribe, comment, share, and be sure to check out the show notes below for ways to connect with my guest and me. So, are you ready to transform your networking game? We're going to deep dive into networking strategies that will revolutionize how you connect with others. So, whether you're a networking enthusiast or someone who finds it a little daunting, we've got you covered. My guest, Kari Mirabal, is an internationally renowned keynote and TEDx speaker. She's an author and a consultant for Fortune 500 companies and executive leaders worldwide. She's an expert in developing authentic connections and empowering professionals through innovative networking strategies. In this episode, Kari will share her valuable insights on networking smarter, enabling you to build meaningful relationships more easily. Whether you prefer in-person networking or the virtual realm, Kari's expertise will guide you toward networking success. So let's just get started here. Kari, hello, welcome.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for having me on your show.
It is my pleasure. I am delighted to have you. This is a topic that I know a lot of my clients and our viewers struggle with, this idea of networking. So I'd love to start with a little bit of background about you, Kari. What experiences led you to consulting about networking?
Right. So I have a background in IT recruiting, actually. So I helped people from New York to California find jobs in every industry. And it was really an exciting time for me to learn and grow. And I found that my favorite part of that business background, in addition to servant leadership, was helping people push through some of that awkwardness that they felt in that process. And so, truthfully, I was a big career woman working lots of hours in the World Trade Center in Denver, Colorado. I'm pausing because it's emotional for me. When I found out I was going to have my first child, and I thought to myself, I want to create a future and an opportunity as a woman entrepreneur to be able to set my own schedule, pick the clients I want to work with, and do the work I'm truly passionate about. And so I took a leap of faith and I started my own consulting company. And I've been doing that for the last 23 years. And it is such a blessing. And I'm so grateful. It's a little intimidating at times, but certainly wonderful. So thank you for letting me share a little bit of that personal story.
That's fabulous. I love to hear those stories when we get to create our careers in a way that serve us best so that we can serve others in the just the very best way possible.
True.
So thank you for sharing it.
Sure.
So let's talk about what you call naked networking.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So, naked networking, the premise is the word naked is an acronym, and it stands for, in my experience, the 5 mistakes that a lot of people make when they start building and sustaining connections. I've made every one of these mistakes. So, if you look at the word naked, N stands for neglect. We tend to neglect our network until we need it, and sometimes that's a little too late. A stands for afraid. Why are we so afraid to talk to strangers? And what can we do about it? K stands for knowledge. Do you have a good strategy that helps you connect with people and maintain those relationships? E stands for engage. How are we approaching people? Is it authentic? Are we bringing our gifts to others? Are we getting curious about other people and kind of letting that guide us? And then D is the dedicate. Sometimes we have to dedicate ourselves to the craft, and that can be done in as little as 15 minutes a day, is what I tell my clients. So we all waste more than 15 minutes a day at work, so we might as well put that into our networking activity. So, in addition to it being an acronym where we talk about the challenges, but also the solutions to help people push past their fear to connect with confidence, we also talk a lot about feelings. And that means a lot of people truly feel naked when they are talking to people that they don't know initially. So it can feel bare, exposed, uncomfortable. So, one of the things that I love doing is helping people get comfortable feeling uncomfortable and to really focus on put the end in mind first. Like, what are the rewards going to be if I put this energy and invest myself into getting to know someone better and also being able to help them? Feelings play a big part in naked networking because a lot of times there's a voice in our head that's our worst enemy. And that is the one saying things like, you don't have anything important to share, or you come across desperate when you ask for help. And what I've learned is that asking for help is a strength, not a weakness. And so I work with people on all of those areas and finding out where they need the most help. And then I do keynotes and master classes about each of those areas and sometimes more, and help people to be able to see the positive side of connecting. Because I think the word naked networking, both those words are kind of scary. And I tell people it doesn't have to be scary. It can be about creating connections that are mutually beneficial for both people.
I never saw or heard naked networking as scary. I thought it was kind of fun and funny. And it reminded me of something someone once told me when I was scared about walking into a room full of strangers.
Mm,
They said, and I know this is advice that people get when they're going on stage, right?
yep.
Envision your audience as naked and
Mhm.
just have
Yeah,
fun.
I've
So,
heard that too.
right. All right. So I know you told me that you didn't always love networking. In fact,
Mm,
I think the word you used was you loathed it.
yes.
So, um, tell us a bit about how you transitioned, great word, right, for this
Yes.
show, transitioned from loathing networking to adopting it as a fundamental tool for you to build your business.
Well, the easy answer is the hard way. A lot of mistakes were made. And I learned early on that failure for me is a great teacher.
Mm,
In the process of the ebbs and flows of putting my foot in my mouth and that awkward silence, how do you start a conversation? How do you end one? I learned a lot along the way. And one of the things that I learned was about interests. And I believe that commonality equals likability. And when people start to like you, they start to trust you. And when they trust you, that is when the opportunities start to unfold. And so when I started leveraging that in my connection process, things started to feel a little bit more natural because I was taking an interest in curiosity approach to what I might have in common with someone new. I'll give you an example. My son played lacrosse in high school. And if you know anything about lacrosse players, they carry those sticks everywhere. So he was on a beach and somebody approached him about the game, and it led to a conversation. And eventually, that initial meeting over that common interest equaled an opportunity for my son to have a summer job. So he spent a summer down on the beach and had a great time. And all of that initial conversation started because of an initial common interest. So that is something that I think I tell people a lot about, that I hated networking so much. I just remember that uncomfortable feeling. But once I started taking an interest in other people, and like I said, getting those wins, I started enjoying the connection process, because for me, it was fun to be of service to other people. And to do that first, servant leaderships, acts of kindness, random acts of kindness, that pay it forward mentality. And that is something that I find when you give kindness, it often comes back to you, maybe not in that same time period, but over time. And so that is really how I made that transition, or that pivot from hating something to actually loving it so much that I decided to make a business out of it, because I'm a stubborn person. And I figured if I can learn how to do this successfully, then my purpose, my meaningful work is to create a movement of people who can learn some simple strategies to also build and sustain powerful connections for their business or even for their personal life.
I love that. You said you started off by saying failure is a great teacher, and I know that to be true as well. I am sure that there's some folks out there listening, going, "Oh no, I hate to fail."
Yeah,
Uh,
I
I have
get
an
it.
aversion to that word, and certainly to the act of failing, or seeming like failure. Um, I like to turn that. I don't believe in failure, honestly. I believe that it is that an opportunity for us to learn
Right.
something new, which is exactly what you have done. So there's a lot of fear around. You talked about the emotions
Hmm.
in naked networking. There's a lot of fear around walking into a room full of people you may not know,
Yeah.
at all, or into even a virtual experience of
Right.
people where you don't know you don't know who's going to be there. So why do you think so many people fear networking?
And that's a really good question. For a lot of people, in my experience with the clients I've coached, it's rejection. And
Mm,
it's so interesting because people will say, I'm just so afraid to be rejected. And that's usually the first thing that comes out, or I don't want to come across as desperate. And it's the stories that we tell ourselves. And those stories sometimes aren't very nice. So I always say, be nice to my friend, whatever their name is, because it's about building confidence. And the only way to build confidence is to prepare and to practice. And so I like to do a twist on rejection, if you will. And I tell my clients that oftentimes the right experiences and or the right people reject us. And I want to say that again, the right people and opportunities often reject us. And let me give you an example of what I mean. Again, I have two sons, and one of my sons had his heart set in high school on wanting to work at a very popular electronics store here where I live. And he applied, and he would come home and check his email, and they just never called, and he's so discouraged. So I had to talk with him, like I have with many people, that sometimes if our plan A doesn't quite work out, let's explore other companies or opportunities that are in a similar wheelhouse. So he applied to a competitor in our town, and worked at that store, and ended up through that relationship meeting a young man who ended up leaving the company and becoming a manager of an infrastructure department at a local engineering firm. So 2 years later, my son was invited to interview and got his very first IT support job on the infrastructure side of technology, because of the relationship that he was able to foster in his, some would argue, second choice for employment. And so I always joke that if the first company had not rejected him, if you will, he would now not be the youngest IT employee at this engineering firm in the town where we live. Because I believe that the universe always has a plan. And sometimes we just have to let things ride, and be okay with the ebbs and flows that can occur in the networking process. I think it's an adventure, who you're going to meet and how they may be able to change your life and how you may be able to actually change someone else's life as well. So to me, getting a grip around rejection and being open to the fact that if it's meant to be, if it's my door, it's going to open. And if it's not, I just have to persevere, keep pushing forward, because you never know how those stories can end up. And in my son's case, and in many of my clients' cases, it's that perseverance that really pays off in my experience.
Yeah, I love that you said that. When it feels like we're being rejected, there's a reason for it. Things
Yeah,
happen. I do believe everything happens for a reason. We don't necessarily understand what it is right away.
right.
Sometimes we never do.
Right.
But there is, we keep looking for that door to open, and we're so focused on the door that we forget that there's a window
Right.
that could be, inching its way up, and we miss it. So, being aware of all the different avenues that the possibilities could come to us through,
Yeah,
I think is really important. I think that's what you're focused on here in this conversation.
absolutely.
So, yeah, I love the story of your son. If he had not done what he did, been rejected, number one,
Hmm.
and then pivoted
That's right.
to do something else instead, and then let it unfold.
Exactly. Exactly. So and now, I have to mom brag, he's the youngest employee there, and he was nominated as, he just got back from his first leadership conference in Dallas. And I keep telling him, he still carries that little bit of rejection in his heart sometimes. I'm like, son, it all worked out for the best. And so sometimes we just have to focus on the positive
Yep.
and be open to the adventure, right? So we've had a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love the stories of your sons. I think that's great. They probably don't love them as much, right?
No, they're not as big of fans, but I'm like, hey, these are great stories. Imagine if I was your mom. My youngest used to complain and go, "Mom's making us network again." When I would take them to events and things, but it's a life skill and
It
it's
really is.
important. I wish I would have learned when I was their age. My kids have been working since they were 14, and I think it's helped them grow and learn. And I only wish I had those gifts when I was younger. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. And that you're right. It's a life skill. Knowing how to talk to people. And in this day and age, I worry a lot about our young people because they
mhm,
are so focused on their phones and their video games. And I worry that they are not learning the skill of having an easy conversation with
yeah,
someone, to the point you made earlier, finding common ground with them
right,
so that you can have a conversation that who knows where it will lead.
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
exciting. My work includes, I do a lot of work with young people. I go to like elementary schools, for example, when they have, opportunities to speak. Now, we don't sell naked networking because that you can't get a parent to sign off on that one. But we teach young people how to make new friends
Yeah.
all the way up through I'm speaking at a college actually next week here in Oklahoma. And this a chance to speak with college students about exactly what you just said. That in the real world, we have to learn basics like eye contact and firm handshakes and smiles and being fully present when you're communicating. There's
Right.
nothing worse than going to a networking event and you're trying really hard, you're talking to someone and their eyes start to shift off and they're looking for their next, I call it victim.
Right.
So while I'm right there, I'll just give a quick tip. If someone is talking to you and their eyes veer off, stop talking. And
Yeah.
then when they make eye contact again, continue your sentence. And so we teach people how to treat us. And I think that's how I'm very invested in helping young people as well learn some of those skills
I
that I
love
think
that.
are important.
They're essential.
Yes.
And I applaud you. I am so happy that you do that with young people, because that is an area that I see, um, with some of the young people that, um, I encounter,
Yes.
is missing in their education.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about some creative suggestions that you could offer our audience for connecting with new people
Sure.
let's start with maybe traditional networking events,
Okay.
face to face.
So I have a few things that may be a refresher for some of your audience, maybe new to hear for others. But there's a couple of things that I love doing. One of them is for those that are a little bit not quite sure how to start a new conversation. Most of the time, when we go to a networking event, we have a name tag. And I would invite your audience to get creative with how they leverage that marketing tool, if you will. So when I go to networking events, I have my name, but right underneath my name, I will put ask me about naked networking. So I tell my clients to say something creative like, I'm learning to sew. Do you know how? Or tell me your favorite place to go skiing. Or what's a skill that you have that you would be willing to share with me? So you're putting something of interest on that name tag that naturally starts a conversation. I had someone that used to have a unique name ask me the origin of my name. So people naturally, when they're walking around and meeting people, most of the time they see the name, but adding a little something extra is helpful in initiating conversation. So that's one that I really encourage my clients to do. Also, a fun place to get involved or plugged in, if you can, is to volunteer at these events. I love encouraging my clients to volunteer at the welcome desk. So, as new people are coming into the event or the conference, they're kind of looking around, a little nervous at times. You get to be the smiling face that greets them, and their name is there, and maybe even where they work or what kind of work they're in. And that can start invitations for conversations later. So always plug in if you can to be of service at those events. But if not, I also want to share another tip that takes a little practice, but I love this one. I call it the one to many networking strategy. So most of the time at these events, there are sessions or tracks where people can go and learn and grow. And most of the time, the speaker will ask for questions at the end. So, what I encourage my clients to do is stand up and into the microphone announce their name and maybe just a tiny little piece of information. Hi, my name is John. I'm in the oil and gas industry. Hi, my name is Susan. I'm a project manager. Or I have one client that's a nurse and she always says, be nice to me. You never know. I might be your nurse one day. So, just something that kind of introduces, in some cases, hundreds of people to your name and a little tiny bit about what you do in that moment. That way, you have a chance to not have to go shake hands with 50 people, because working a room is not a goal that I set for my clients. It's let's build some meaningful relationships. And that's a great way to get yourself out there. Um, I also really just encourage people to go into these networking events like they're adventures. Who am I going to meet that I could change their life? And who might I meet today that could change mine? And when you're open to that possibility and you're asking that person, what are you hoping to get out of this event? Or what is your best possible outcome? I think it's important to ask questions of others. And also, another quick tip is to be looking out for the people that are the wallflowers at these things. Trust me, they are uncomfortable and they are standing there just not sure what to do, and they're clinging onto that wall. So I encourage people to go up and introduce themselves and invite people to conversation. At the same time, the last tip here is, if you are someone who is nervous, this whole thing is just scary to you, I always tell people embrace that. What you perceive as a weakness could actually be leveraged as a strength. I'll give you an example. If you see two or three people talking and you really want to join the conversation, but you're a little intimidated, it's better to walk up to that group of people and say, hi, my name is Kari. I'm a little nervous today. Networking is not always, my most fun thing to do on a Friday night. Could I join this conversation? And I have found in my experience that most people are going to be very welcoming, like, oh yeah, sure, we don't bite, or they'll make a joke and welcome people. And I think that when you present it that way versus awkwardly walking into a conversation talking about the weather or something weird, just be yourself and don't be afraid to share. This is a little intimidating for me. I'm thankful for the opportunity to meet you all and just be authentic. So, those are some of the suggestions that I tell my clients to get involved in on a traditional networking event.
I love that. There are a couple there that I think are really they stood out to me. The name tag strategy, I think, was a
Yeah.
really good one. It's a great way for people because everyone is always looking at the name tag first,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right, because you don't want to go, fumble with names, right? So
Right.
you look at the name tag, and go, "Hey, Carrie, nice to meet you. I'm Maria." That's the first thing. And if there's something on that name tag that is kind of starts the conversation, I think that's a brilliant strategy. The other one I loved was the one to many.
Yes.
When when there's an opportunity to ask a question, be sure you have one, and that is a golden opportunity for you to introduce yourself to a bunch of people. And when they hear what's unique about you or what you share about yourself, and they resonate with it in some way, they're going to seek you out.
That's right. That's right. The gravity aspect. So I love
Yeah,
that one.
that magnet. You become a magnet for people who resonate with what you said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I share one tip on the other side, the digital networking side?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to
Okay.
that next. So yes, and especially I know a lot of us spend a lot of time on LinkedIn for
Yes.
whatever purpose and whatever kind of networking we need to do. A lot of my clients use that a lot when they're
Yes.
looking for work.
Yep.
So yeah, please share some tips on how we can leverage that.
So LinkedIn is, in my opinion, it changed my life. And the coaching that I do with LinkedIn, I do corporate classes and individual work where I customize systems and processes for every individual, and it works across all industries. I love LinkedIn, and it's been around about 19 years, which most people are surprised. Oh, that new thing, LinkedIn. I'm like, no, it's not new. You're new to it. But I want to say that LinkedIn at the core, it is a networking platform. A lot of people think it's a job board or it's Facebook, and it's not. It's a professional place to see and be seen. And while I do not work for LinkedIn, I am a huge advocate for the platform because it has been a way for me to connect with people across the country and abroad and bring my gifts and also receive my gifts. So I always joke that the platform gives sometimes where you are the recipient, and sometimes it takes, right? Where it's a give and take relationship. But one of the things that I love coaching my clients on is to leverage the QR code feature on your mobile phone. Because when you go to a networking event, and you maybe want to give someone a business card, that's a little bit of a dated process, because when you give someone your card, you're at the mercy that they're going to message you, or you're putting that power in their hand. And sometimes they use it for a gum wrapper, or it gets lost, or whatever. But if you pull out your phone and you pull up the QR code on LinkedIn, it's a chance to educate someone, because a lot of people still don't even know that this is out there. But you click on it and say, "Are you on LinkedIn?" And if they say yes, then you pull it up and one person scans and the other one, you put your phones together and it instantly connects to people. What I love about that is you walk away with not only name and face recognition, but you have their contact information right there. So if you want to do a follow up, another tip on that is I will send a quick message after I meet people at a conference, and I might say something like, "Hey, it was great to meet you at the so and so leadership event. And by the way, good luck to your son who's trying out for that baseball team," or something personal that helps you remember that conversation you had, or that person. They're One thing that's great about that tool is in the process of doing that, you're going to find that people leave jobs, they change phone numbers or emails, LinkedIn is a tool that will always have the most current information. So unlike a business card that once I change a number or an email, it's useless now. LinkedIn will always have that current contact information. And so I can always reach out to that person, and it will keep that information in your messages so that 3 months down the road, you can remember how you met that person. And a lot of people see it as a chance to learn and grow because they don't know about that feature. And so you can educate someone while you're networking with them.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us where to find that QR code on LinkedIn.
Definitely, you want to Google it so you can see the visuals, but it's on your phone. When you do this search tab, there are like 4 squares in the search tab, and you just click on that and it'll open up the QR codes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to show you on the through
Yeah,
here,
no,
but
that's a
it's
fabulous
easy to
idea.
find.
You're right. Google it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea. I didn't know about the QR code, and
Really?
I've been
Okay.
training people on LinkedIn for a long time, and I didn't know about the QR code. So look, we can
Love it.
thank you for
You're
teaching me
welcome.
something that will help my clients.
Sure.
So, I think that's a fabulous if they're doing in-person networking, that is a fabulous way to do it. I mean, I meet most people virtually, and I am, it's kind of ingrained in me to say, let's connect on LinkedIn and just go do it.
Right.
Um, and and I always send a follow-up message, a DM, a direct message to them
Right.
after that. So yeah, I love the QR code when you're face to face.
What do they say?
That's
Strike while the iron's hot. While it's
yeah,
fresh in your
absolutely.
mind. So
And the idea that, to include something in your note that is a reminder to both of you
right.
about the conversation you had, so that it's, oh, I remember her. Yeah, and then you see the face.
Right.
I remember that conversation.
Right.
There
And
there
something
is
personal,
an
if they
immediate
if
connection there.
exactly. If they're struggling with a challenge at work or something like that, try to, how's that going? A follow-up a few weeks later. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The follow-up process, I think, is something that a lot of people um, fail to do,
right.
right? On a
Right.
on a regular basis. And I meet a lot of people. I was one of these who
Yep.
I don't want to intrude. I don't want to be a pest.
Right.
And I have a rule for myself about that I do a follow-up 3 times. I told you earlier today, I
Yes.
love the number 3, right?
Yes.
So I do a follow-up 3 times, and if I'm not getting any reply,
Right.
then I stop.
Yes.
I don't waste my time beyond that. But sometimes it takes more than once.
Yes.
There are so many studies about this.
Yes.
How many times does it take for people to engage with you? And the numbers range from 7 to 12.
Hmm.
Well, 3 doesn't meet that, but 3 feels right to me. So
Right.
I think we all just have to, but we need to do more than one.
Right. And I think we need to mix the media too, Maria. When we talk
Yes.
about with my clients, I tell them if you send an email message, call the next time. And if you called last time, send a note on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Snail mail is still a great resource that a lot of people don't think about. But when you open a card, you have that audience for a good 10 or 15 seconds while they're reading it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, my young clients are like, "What? You can still do that?" I'm like, "Yes, you can." Sometimes
They
being
still
creative.
make stamps. Yes.
Exactly. So mix your media, but also to your point, very well said, know when to cut your losses. Because there are people, I'm a power networker, but there are still people out there who don't network with me. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay, no problem. I'll put my focus and attention on the ones that reciprocate.
Right. Right. And there's a time to just say, like you said, cut your losses and just say, next. What's next? Who's
Yes,
next? Yeah.
exactly. Love that.
Right.
Love
Right.
that.
Okay. So let's talk about icebreakers. What are some good icebreakers? You've given us a couple of ideas, but those are, I think, some of the hardest things to come up with The
in the
common
moment.
ground, that's one that you talked about. The name tag is another. Are there
Right.
any other icebreakers that you can share with
So
us?
you're talking about when you walk up to a group and you're wanting to know a little bit about the person. I love to just
Yeah.
ask, what
And I think, excuse me for interrupting, but I think it could also be used in a virtual environment as well.
absolutely. I always like to ask people, what is your best possible outcome for attending this event? Some people might say, well, I'm in career transition, so I'm looking to meet other professionals in the marketing field. Or maybe it's, I really want to learn and grow because I'm trying to get a certification in this area or something. And that can really trigger someone to go, oh, my brother does this. Or, oh, I know someone who might be able to help you. So I joke around and say, lead the witness, but we have to kind of help people know how they can help us. So I like to put those questions out early. I may ask someone, what did you like best about the keynote? Or what did you learn from the last session? Or which session are you going to next? Or I'm curious, tell me a little bit about something exciting that you're doing in your work today. Or maybe even what's something you're thankful for. If you call my voicemail and you hear my voice message, it says, thank you for calling Kari Mirabal, but please share with me one thing you're grateful for today before you hang up. And it is such a blessing because I get to listen to, my phone rings a lot, and I get to listen to people taking a moment to have a moment of appreciation in their day. So asking people those questions at a networking event isn't uncommon. And it's better than the, so tell me about yourself, the
Yeah.
dry. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that because it touches people's hearts, right?
Right.
It gets to the heart of the matter is what it does,
Right.
right? We are all, after all, human, right?
Right.
And we respond best to emotion
Right.
with emotion,
Right.
right? So if you're asking, so how are you doing today? And be really, really care about the answer, really want to know.
Right.
What are you grateful for today? What are
Mhm.
you grateful? What is the best thing that's happened to you today?
Yeah. How are you
You know,
celebrating? What's something you're celebrating this week? Or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I love those. I love those ideas.
Yep. Servant
Um,
leadership. I believe that's where it's at. Random acts of kindness. How can I help support
how
you?
can I help you? Yeah,
And help support, because I find that when you say, how can I help you? People sometimes feel like, well, I don't need help, and they get defensive. But if you say, how can I help support you? I get a better response at
yeah.
events.
One of the questions I love to share with my clients is, who do I know that you need to know? Who do
Right.
you need to know that I might be able to introduce you to?
Good one.
And
Yeah.
that starts a conversation about it starts them thinking about, okay, so who do I need to know? Is there someone that I need to learn a new skill from, or do someone I need some another one is what's the best book you've read recently,
Right. Oh, I love that
right?
one.
So
Yes.
that we learn from reading, right? And sharing books
Yes.
to someone else who is also a reader is, I find those are blessings. You just read the latest book by Linda Rossetti? Really? How was it?
Exactly.
That
And
kind
for
of
those of your people in your audience that have written a book, I always take like 2 or 3 copies of my book everywhere I go. And if someone says something, I give it as a gift.
Yep.
I was on a plane last week and I sat next to a wonderful woman, and I had my book next to me because I was doing some work on my second book. And she said, oh, may I see that book? She didn't recognize me. I had a baseball hat on, sunglasses. And she said, is this a good book? I said, oh, it's amazing. It's lovely. I had fun with her for a few minutes, but I ended up offering to give her a copy of the book because, again, that act of kindness, you never know
Yeah,
where that could lead.
that's right. And if it leads nowhere, but she read it and got something out of it,
Bravo.
that's a beautiful thing,
You were a gift to
right?
that person. I think when we talk about networking being a gift, we have to remember that if it's a true gift, you're giving something to someone without the expectation
Right.
that they're going to give you something back. Sometimes I give and sometimes I receive, and it all works out.
And it comes back around. It always does. In
It
my
does.
experience,
Me
it
too.
always does. It comes back around.
Yep.
Yeah. So not walking in with with expectations. Like, I'm going to meet, I mean, I've had some coaches in my career say, you got to go in with an intention
Mm,
that you're going to meet X number of people,
yeah,
and they are going to be, the right kind of people for you. Well, what if they're not there?
exactly.
I have walked out of a networking uh, environment so disappointed
Yes.
because my intention wasn't met.
Right.
So, what if your intention is just to give
Yep.
whatever it is that you might have to give, a connection, asking for what you're grateful for and getting
Mhm.
back
Yep.
something that somebody else, yeah, just starting a conversation that's meaningful.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
just going on that adventure, and also it's great practice because preparation leads to confidence. So the more you do those things, the more comfortable you get. And you
Yeah.
never know how you bless people. I've had blessings in the weirdest places, like, wow, I needed to hear that today. Thank you. And so that in itself is also the gift of connection with people.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
being open. I think having the right mindset for all of this is very, very important.
Yeah, you're so right about that. And knowing what and knowing your why,
Right.
right? Why is networking an important practice for you? And the
Yeah.
question is it, right? Is
Right.
it important for you? And if it is, how can you make it work best for you? And
Yeah.
that's what you're so brilliant at, Carrie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. So you and I could probably chat about this. I say this to so many of my guests.
Yes.
We get into these conversations and they could go on and on.
Yes.
I would love for you to just kind of put a bow on this for us.
Okay.
Tell me. We always end the show with my guests sharing tips and key takeaways. Well, you've peppered tips all throughout this conversation, and I appreciate that so much. So, how might you wrap that up? What are some of the key takeaways that our audience can uh, maybe use right away?
Right. Absolutely. I think for me, I would say, don't let the word networking intimidate you. Look
Mm,
at it as I'm connecting with people. I'm getting curious about how I might be able to help other people or be of service to them. And have that curious mindset when you go into the idea of building and sustaining powerful connections. And just, I would say 4 out of 5 of my clients find jobs in the unpublished job market, which is a beautiful thing when it comes to networking. So always keep your options open. Even if you have your heart set on one thing, think about the journey. It sounds cliche, but the process of meeting people along the way might be the gift itself. And it's a hidden gift. So be open to that and have the right mindset. I would also say that a question that I get a lot after keynotes is, where are the best opportunities to network? And I kind of laugh at that because I'm like, everywhere, right? So you could be standing in line at the coffee shop or at a sporting event, or gosh, go buy a lacrosse stick. It worked out for my son, right? To get a job. But just see opportunity that others miss, and be open to knowing that networking is not a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 thing. Sometimes you can strike up conversations in unique places. Believe it or not, I got stuck in an elevator one time for 30 minutes with someone, and we had a lovely conversation. And it was just in the midst of chaos of being stuck in this elevator, and ended up staying in touch after that. And we always joked about how we met. So you just never know. And we talked earlier about some tips, if you will, is to know when to cut your losses, and it's okay to build and sustain the goal of networking mutually beneficial relationships. And so I'm going to leave your audience with my 3-step networking strategy, which I think is really powerful. And it is plan, connect, and grow. So, in each step of the process of networking, ask yourself, which step am I in? And if you give equal energy to each of those 3 areas, your networking activity most of the time will not fail you. So, I would say those are some big tips. I'll leave you with, in my book, I always say go for the ask. My book is called You Already Have the No. And what that means is before you ask someone for help or for a question, you already don't have their help. So what do you have to lose by going for it? Just have 10 seconds of courage and never know where it's going to lead. So it's exciting.
I love that. And you called it many times an adventure.
Yes.
And if you get curious and you look at it as an adventure, and the other thing I would say, and you mentioned this a moment ago, it is a journey. This
Mm-hmm.
is like being on a road trip.
Yes.
And when you meet somebody for the first time, it doesn't have to be the last time. So
Right.
where else can you meet them along their journey or
Mm-hmm.
along your journey? And how can you be of assistance to each other?
Very good. Yes.
I love that. Kari, thank you so much for being here and
Thank you.
sharing your brilliance with us.
Thank you.
I am sure that there are going to be some people who want to connect with you after we close this off, and they might be watching the replay or listening to the audio version of this. What is the very best way, the one best way? Where should they go?
I would say my website, karimirabal.com, because there you can have links to my book, my TED Talk, all of my social media sites. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help.
That's fabulous. Thank you again. I really appreciate your being here. I love your energy,
Thank
and I
you.
love that you've made networking for us a more touchable subject, right? It's not
Yes.
something that we need to cringe and avoid,
Right.
but something that we can embrace and kind of put our toe in the water,
Yeah.
and
Enjoy.
and then practice some more.
Very
I
good.
love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And now I want to thank everybody else for being here, for watching and listening. I really appreciate that you are a part of this community. So if you enjoyed this episode, again, please subscribe, comment, or click a star. And just let us know what you thought. As I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for women. Plus, as a life and career coach, I work with women to help them navigate challenging times more quickly and gracefully. So, if something in this episode resonates with you and you'd like a fresh perspective on it, connect with either Kari or me. You can continue the conversation in my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap. And the link for that is below, along with all the other links. So, you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So, let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.